Grüß euch. Thanks for watching. I just wanted to spend a minute and talk to you about the DBA, because I know that's something that's a little bit unusual or different, or maybe some people are a little bit scared by, and it's really not meant to be a really big deal. So I wanted to walk you through it a little bit. Basically, at the start of a DBA, I'm always going to tell you the same things. The DBA is really just meant to be a conversation between us, a chance for us to talk, practice our skills of communication person to person that we don't often get to do just because the class is set up being online on the computer, and that's kind of tricky. It's not meant to be a really big deal. It's not meant to be a really big test. It's not meant to be intimidating. If you need to stop, think, get your thoughts together, that's fine. There are also some vocabulary hints and suggestions on the DBA page in your lessons, and that'll give you some vocabulary hints. How you can ask me to repeat a word or say you don't understand so that maybe I can give you a hint towards the answer. And that's fine. You want to use that to your advantage for sure. So after I tell you those things, I'm going to ask you if you have any questions. So there I'm looking for questions about the unit. Whatever you've just been through and learned, if there's still any questions hanging on in your head, what does this word mean, how do you pronounce this, that's when you want to ask them if you haven't done that yet. After that, we're going to dive into the DBA. It's really meant to be a conversation, so I'm going to start by greeting you. I'll say something like Guten Tag, just to sort of get the conversation going, get us talking in German a little bit, because once we start that, once you start hearing the German, things I hope, or I think, are going to ease up, loosen up a little bit, you'll be able to communicate. But just like sports or anything, you don't want to go in there cold and just have some questions being asked. With any DBA, I have a couple questions to ask you to keep the conversation going, to keep it moving, so you want to answer those just as best you can. So some hints for you: be sure you're answering a complete sentence. If I ask you how it's going, don't just say good, tell me it's going good. And that just shows a little bit higher level of speaking on your part. You can phrase something in a sentence, because we want to see you being able to think and phrase things on your own. That you can communicate meaning independent of anybody or anything else, so even without any sort of questions or anything like that. But that's really all we're going to be doing. I'll have a couple questions for you, maybe 3, 4, 5 questions is going to be your typical DBA length, so it's not going to be anything super long. If you're worried about the grading, that's really just meant to look at, did we have a conversation? Were we able to understand each other? So part of the grade, of course, is were you able to understand me? And I can see that by your answers. Are you able to understand? Are you able to answer quickly, easily? Do you need hints? Do your answers make sense? And then the other part of that grade is, did you communicate with me effectively? Did you have a good vocabulary? Was your pronunciation good? Things like that. Now, of course, sorry if you were hoping I was going to give you the questions of the DBA. We're not going to do that, because the idea is really to imitate a real conversation as much as possible. And before you have a conversation with somebody, they don't come up to you and say, I'm going to tell you these things or ask you these things, so be prepared for that. But it's just meant to be a chat. You just want to talk to me as best you can. Afterwards, we'll talk about a couple things. Anything that came up, maybe I can push you in the right direction. With pronunciation or word order, or and anything that might be important. At the end of the DBA, I'm also going to ask you again if there's anything I can help you with, or if there's any questions you have. And that's meant to be more general, more about class overall. If there's some assignment you were worried about, or you have questions about the best way to work through the units, or what's going to happen on Christmas break, things like that. That's a chance for you to ask that. If you have any nerves, or if you have any questions, or if there's anything you still want to know about the DBA, just send me a message. I'd be happy to talk with you a little bit more, because I know it's a hard thing to do, to call someone you don't know, me, talk to them on the phone, where we have very little context, because there's no body language, you can't see me, all you can hear is the voice, and then talk in a language you're just learning, which is of course hard too. So there are a couple hard things piled on there. So I wanted to make it as user-friendly for you as possible, and remove any sort of any bit of being scared or nerves or anything like that, because we want to see you at your best. Danke. Ciao.